more than that.
What do you think of value-added tax?
Well, I basically don't like it because it's somewhat akin. It isn't the same, but it's somewhat akin to a sales tax. I mean, it has.
It's regressive.
Yeah, it's regressive, and you know, we don't need more regressive taxes in the United States.
That's why you don't like cap and trade.
Yeah, well, that's right. In terms of the way it falls on people, yeah, absolutely. I think that if we're looking for more money, we ought to look to guys like me. I mean, I am still paying a lower rate on dividends and capital gains than my cleaning lady is, you know, in terms of her payroll tax just to start with. And so I just think that we've gotten so far out of whack in terms of who's been prosperous in recent years, and most of the economy, most people have been left behind, you know. So we learned that a rising tide lifts all yachts. You know?
But there are not a lot of guys like you to start with.
Well, there are some.
Well, but you're the top of the list there with you and Bill. But there is also this. What is an appropriate rate of taxation of people like you before, as some conservatives and supply-siders argue, you began to somehow inhibit growth?
Yeah. Well, I worked through all kinds of systems of taxation,
right.
And I worked with rich people, you know, even in the 50s, but in the 60s, and I worked with them when the top rate was 70%. I worked with them when capital gains rates were 39.6%, and not one of them said, you know, it's 1 o'clock, instead of working this afternoon, I think I'll go to the movies because my marginal rate is so high. I mean, if anything, they worked harder, Charlie. You know,
the reason they got rich is because they worked hard.
I never had one person. I had hundreds of people, you know, in the partnership, and not one of them ever came to me and said, Warren, I've decided to hell with it. 39.6%. I'm not going to invest my money. What would they do with it? Stick it under mattresses?
Does that mean that the American system is, in a sense, a bit unfair and geared to the rich?
Well, I think it has become more geared to the rich as time has gone by, and I think that the rich have, you know, obviously a disproportionate impact, you know, on how Congress behaves. And
money and politics.
You basically have to, if you have a very rich country with a great number of super rich, you have to fight against a plutocracy. I mean, you know, the Congress has to be your bulwark for the principles of democracy to win out over a plutocracy, and we've done that well in this country. But it's a constant fight. I mean, you know, K Street is not populated by a whole bunch of people who represent my cleaning woman, but if you look at the Forbes 400, you'll find that you know, they find their way to K Street, and it finds its way to them. Sure,
they have multiple voices on K Street.
Sure, they care.
So what would you do about that?
Well, it's always a problem. And you want a prosperous country, so you want a whole bunch of rich people, but you also want everybody to do reasonably well in something as prosperous as we have. We have $45,000 of GDP per capita in the United States, but we've got almost 60 million people living in households where the top income is $21,000 or less. That's the top of the 60 million people. So we can do better. Now, we have done better over time. I mean, we put in Social Security, and we've done things in the country that have worked in the direction.
Medicare, Medicaid.
Yeah. But a prosperous country should not just be prosperous for the people like me who are wired in a particular way at birth. No credit to me, but I happen to know something about capital allocation. It wasn't, you know, I could have been wired, you know, so I was, you know. I don't know, a great ukulele player, but there's more money in what
sometimes you can be both.
Yeah, well, not often, not in this case anyway. But there's more money in what I do, and you don't want to mess up the market system that works to bring out of people what their best talents are. But the market system is not perfect in any kind of distribution of wealth, and taxation is a way where you get to the excesses of what the market system produces, and where you take care of the people that get the short straws. In a country as prosperous as we are, nobody should get a really short straw.
You know, some people are going to hear you say that now and say, Warren's talking about sharing the wealth. There he goes.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about sharing the prosperity. There's no question about
that.
I am prosperous because of the society around me. Stick me down in some poor country, and I'll walk around saying, I allocate capital, you know, and they'll say, so what? You know, what we need is a guy with a strong back, you know, and I don't have a strong back.
Can you row a boat or something?
Do something like that. So society, listen, when a couple of middleweights fight it out on pay-per-view this weekend, you know, and get $49.95 from me or whatever it may be, and I can't remember their names 2 weeks later, you know, they are benefiting not because of their own talent that much, but because some guy invented television and then invented cable television and learned how to change a stadium of 15,000 people into a stadium of 300 million. So they benefit from society. We all do. And some like me benefit enormously from society. You know, I can't do it by myself. Stick me on a desert island, you know, and you do not want to be on that same island.
There is this also. The Bush administration says that when the economic crisis came, they treated it with a tactic, which was doing what they did. They worry that what the Obama administration is doing is a strategy to put in place a different attitude about the relationship between the government and the economy.
Yeah, I don't think the Obama administration wants the government to take over the economy, but they did. They took on a situation, and incidentally, I give credit to the Bush administration in that last 4 or 5 months of 2008. I mean, a lot of right things were done. I mean, when George Bush said, you know, if money doesn't ease up, if money doesn't ease up, this sucker can go down. Now, that was one of the most profound economic statements ever made. You know, I mean, he became the economist in chief as far as I was concerned at that point. But so I give them credit too. But the Obama administration, they're not running General Motors because they want to run General Motors. I mean, it isn't like that Barack Obama grew up with some great itch to run the whole American economy. They're doing what?
Oh, he might want to buy a railroad,
yeah,
though.
Well,
that's said to be a fun game.
Can't buy it from me.
But go ahead. That's a good point.
But they are doing what is necessary in their view to get this economy righted. And like, nobody makes perfect decisions on this. And they're doing things I'm sure they don't like to do. I don't think they want to run General Motors, you know, or Chrysler or anything of the sort.
Or own AIG. Or,
no, or you know,
especially own AIG.
That is no fun. Or prop up Freddie and Fannie and all that sort of thing.
So all these people who think that somehow there's some new idea about, and they use the word socialism, but something else in terms of,
Barack
you
Obama,
don't buy that.
Barack Obama wants a much more prosperous economy, embodying the principles that have made it prosperous. But I think he does want to make sure that the bottom 20 or 30% does better than it's done in the last 20 years, while the top has prospered so much.